What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Dark Previews, and today, you and I and everybody else watching this video, we're going to dissect this two-game slate on the WNBA. I'm going to put in all my favorite leans in the comment section, and you guys are going to tell me which ones to bet on. We ran this in our last video. Take a look at how it went. We had Alicia Gray. That was the most popular pick from all the plays, and that absolutely cashed. So great job to everybody else who picked on Alicia Gray. Unfortunately, Arike and Tina Charles, they were the second and third most popular plays. They didn't manage to cover, but at least I can trust you guys. You guys are onto something. So we're running it back. I'll do the preview the way I normally would. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't, what I think happens. I'll get the best ones. I'll put them in the comment section, and I'll leave it up to you guys to tell me which one is most likely to cash, and that is what I'm going to be betting on. So if that sounds interesting, let's go. All right, we're jumping into the Liberty versus the Fever. I think the Liberty 8.5 point favorites in this game. I think they absolutely smacked them. They've smashed them 3 times already. Why not a 4th time? But you're not here about to talk about sides and totals. We're about player props. Quick look at the lineup, though. Sabali, Fagbenle, both game time decisions for the Liberty and the Fever, but not massive line movers either. So let's talk about the Liberty first. They are on the road. Let's talk about Sabrina. We'll get through all their key players. Let's see what we come up with. So firstly, Sabrina's points line's at 18.5. She's hitting 7 out of her last 10, 12 out of 21 games this season, averaging 18.9. Up against a Fever team who is terrible on the defensive end. They have been playing better overall, this Fever team, but on the defensive end, not very good at all. So Sabrina does have a good matchup. They do allow a lot of points to guards. They're not great at defending the perimeter, so Sabrina can definitely cook. If we look at the head-to-head matchups, 3 games against the Fever this season, she's gone under in all 3, 14, 12, and 16 points in those games, under 30 minutes of action, blowouts in 2 out of the 3. If we look at her volume, the volume's not very high as well. So we haven't seen the aggressive side to Sabrina shoot the ball. Outlier stats calling out that she's exceeded 18.5 points in 6 out of her last 7 games versus the bottom 5 defenses for points allowed. So this is more recent. A lot of the earlier matchups against the Fever were in the earlier in the season. But if you look at the only game in these last 7 games against terrible defensive teams, the only game she did go under was against the Fever. And a lot of that has to do with a blowout win, less minutes, and not taking as many shots. But just because she's gone under in all 3 games this season doesn't necessarily mean she's going to go under again, you know what I mean? So I'd probably lean to the over with that. I don't know how much I love it, but definitely that's the way that I'm thinking. If we look at her more recent form, yeah, I guess she's been okay, but she has started to slow down a little bit. I think since Courtney Vandersloot came back. How many games has she been back for? Let's check that out. With Vandersloot in the lineup. So Vandersloot's been back for 3 games. And in those 3 games, Sabrina has slowed down, covering in 1 out of the 3. So I probably still lean to the over, but not a bet that I necessarily want to consider. Her assist line's at 6.5. She's covered that in 6 out of her last 10. Again, last 3 games since Courtney's been back, poo-poo. Hasn't been passing the ball up real well, but this Fever team does allow a lot of assists. But if we look at how she's performed against the Fever this season, under in her assist line in all 3 games. So I think the fade on Sabrina might be the look here. Take a look at her rebounds, 4.5. She cashed this in 2 out of the 3 games against the Fever this season. In her last 10, she's cashed in 5 out of 10 and 11 out of 21 this season. So there's not a clear trend here with her board, so I'd probably stay away from it. But the play that I'm considering is actually an under in a points plus assist, because I'll tell you this. I do like the under in her assist, but it's minus 160. So the odds aren't great. But points plus assists, minus 110 to the under, 24.5. Now, it is quite risky. She has covered this in 13 of 20 games this season, but a lot of the damage was done when Courtney Vandersloot was out of the lineup. Now, with the Liberty getting close to full health, and we take a look at Sabrina's games with Vandersloot in the lineup, she's only cashed this in 6 out of her last 20 games. This season with Vandersloot, she's only cashed in 5 out of 12. So with Vandersloot in the lineup, Sabrina has slowed down a little bit. So I'm honestly leaning towards the under here. I'll take that down as one of my first leans. And ultimately, we'll see whether you guys choose to ride with it or not. But yeah, I don't mind that. You can fade Sabrina. The trend of low-performing games against the Fever, I can still see it happening, especially with the Liberty being at full strength. Next up, we're going to talk through Brianna Stewart. So Brianna Stewart, her point line's at 21.5 or 20.5, depending on where you look. She's hit this in 4 out of 10, 8 out of 21 games this season. And in the head-to-head matchups against the Fever, this season, 31, 24, then 13 points. Again, matchup, pretty decent. They do allow a lot of points. And if Sabrina's going to go to the under, you're going to get points from Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones. 21.5, though, it's a pretty high line without a clear trend. I guess she's more than capable. She's covered in 2 out of the 3 games. This is a road game, after all. She scored 31 on the road against Indiana in the first game of the season. She took 21 shots in that game. Looking at her more recent form, averaging 16 attempts per game. I'd honestly lean to the over in this. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'd lean to the over in this. Part of the reason why, she just scored 17 against the Minnesota Lynx. She only shot 5 for 20, so a pretty poor game by her standards. She is shooting close to 50% on the season. I'd like to see a bit of a bounce back here. I'm just checking to see if she's had poor games like that before. So we got the first game against the Mystics, 33%, and she came back and killed it. Some pretty slow games here against the Mystics again. Came back and shot a lot better, but the volume wasn't high. No, there's no clear trend. So I probably lean to the over, but nothing that I'm excited about there for Brianna Stewart. Her assist line, 3.5, 11 out of 21 games this season. 4, 2, and 5 in the 3 games against the Fever. Minus 132, so the over is definitely the favored side. And the outlier stat here is that Brianna Stewart has exceeded this assist line in 6 out of her last 7 games against bottom 5 defenses, 4 assists allowed. So the teams that give up assists, Brianna Stewart has covered this quite nicely. So, yeah, I'd lean to the over, but at minus 132, I'm not a massive fan of that, to be honest. I still think the under for Sabrina's PRA, my favorite play so far. Looking at her rebound line, 4 out of her last 10. She's had 17 boards in that last game against the Lynx. 11 out of 21 games this season. And against the Fever, she's gone 10, 5, and 6. Looking at her stat line here, the outlier stat, Brianna Stewart. She's gone under 10.5 boards in 7 straight games for top 5 defenses for rebounds allowed. So as bad as this Fever team is defensively, they're not bad when it comes to rebounds. So they don't allow too many rebounds. That's partly because they allow a lot of points. So, but these teams sitting in the top 5, you can see how Brianna Stewart has played up against them so far. And she's got under this 10.5 rebound line in every single game. So it's a nice stat, but at minus 154, I'm not absolutely loving that. But if you're looking at price picks, perhaps it could be a good look. Let's take a look at Jonquel Jones. Her points line's at 15.5 in this game. She's cashed in 6 out of her last 10, 11 out of 21 this season, and in head-to-head matchups against the Fever, 14, 14, and 18 points. The outlier stat here is that up against teams that allow a shit ton of points, so the worst defensive teams in the league, Jonquel Jones has covered this line in 6 out of her last 7 games. So a nice lean to the over. So I don't mind that. I can honestly see this game where the Liberty get points from a whole lot of players, whether it be Sabrina, Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, even Brittany. I'll just go with Lainey Hamilton. But I do think they can get points from a whole lot of places. So the over for Jonquel Jones is what I'm leaning. She's cashed this in 7 out of her last 10. But the concern for me, if you check these numbers out, her numbers change dramatically with and without Courtney Vandersloot. So with Vandersloot, she's cashed in 5 out of 12 games. And then without Vandersloot, she's cashed in 7 out of 9. So she averages almost 20 points per game with Vandersloot out of the lineup. And with Vandersloot in the lineup, she averages 12.7. And that's my only concern of taking her over. Vandersloot's been back since the 3 games now. Jonquel Jones went 3, 5, and then 21 against the Liberty. So I'm a little bit hesitant looking at that. This is her rebounds, 9 out of 21 on the season, 4 out of her last 10. Head-to-head matchup, she's rebounded extremely well against the Fever, 10, 12, and 13. So she'd be beasting it. And looking at her last 5 games, she's averaging 10.4. So the line's at 9.5, and it is a plus money play. Great head-to-head record. I know this Fever sit in middle of the pack when it comes to rebounds allowed, but my gut feeling is the over here. It makes the most sense. Jonquel Jones, she's still getting the minutes, so the opportunities are still there. So I do like that. That's going down on my list of leans. The next is her assist line. More than capable of racking up some assists. 3.5 is the line. She's hitting 10 of 21 games. 6 out of 10 games. But what we need to see is just the games with Courtney Vandersloot. And we can see that this season, she's 5 out of 12. Outlier stat here is... Jonquel Jones has exceeded this in 4 out of her last 5 games versus bottom 5 defenses for assists allowed. But only one of those games, Vandersloot was in the lineup, and that was the game where she finished with 2 assists. So Jonquel Jones assists. I'm going to have to avoid that. Let's have a quick look at Lainey Hamilton. Now, she'll have a lot of green on this graph, but let's have a look. Her point sign's at 11.5, 7 out of her last 10, 12 out of 18 games this season. In the head-to-head matchups against the Fever, played very well, 12, 13, and 20 points. She greened up in all 3 of them. Now, she had a little bit of time off. She was injured at the same time with Vandersloot. So I just want to look at her games with Vandersloot. She's still got 12 games out, and she still performed very well, 13.3 as an average. And all 3 games against the Fever had Vandersloot in it as well. So Lainey Hamilton, I'd like her to get some points today. If we take a look at the outlier stat, she's exceeded this in 13 of the last 15 games versus the bottom 5 defenses for points allowed, which is pretty wild. But the main ones I'd be looking at are the last 5 on this graph because they're all from this season. But when the matchup is right, Lainey Hamilton been getting buckets. So whole lot of green up in this graph. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. My only concern is there a chance she gets less minutes? Probably not. She is a starter after all. So I don't mind that. Let's take a look. All right, let's jump into the Fever and see if we can find something over there. Caitlin Clark. Let's see what Cece can hit on. Her point sign's at 15.5. She's hit this in 5 out of her last 10, 11 out of 21 games this season. In the 3 games against the Liberty, she went 9, 22, and 3. So she's had some pretty tough performances. The matchup is difficult. Liberty, one of the better teams in the competition. Look, I'd probably lean to the under. Caitlin Clark still not putting up the volume I thought she would. So I'd probably lean to the under, but she can get hot. So I'm not ultimately excited to bet the under on Caitlin Clark today, but that's definitely the way that I'll be leaning for her points. Her assist line's at 7.5, 4 out of her last 10. 7.5 is quite high. 7 out of 21 games this season. And if we take a look at this, Caitlin Clark, she's failed to exceed this assist line in 4 of her last 5 games against the top 5 defenses for assists allowed. So even if we just look at the head-to-head stuff, she's gone to the under in 2 out of 3. So I'd probably be looking at the under for assists. Her rebound line's at 6.5 against the Liberty, 7, 6, and 2. In her last 10 games, she's only covered this 4 times. And if we look at the outlier stat, that she's failed to exceed this line in 5 of her last 6 games against top 5 defenses for rebounds allowed. So, yeah, to be honest, I'll be looking at the under here for Caitlin Clark. So one thing I'm thinking about is just looking at the under for maybe her PRA. She's actually been catching out on her PRA not too badly. But she's been diamond up as of late. That's the thing. She's coming against the Mercury and the Aces and the Storm. So some pretty difficult games. So, yeah, I'm not overconfident when it comes to fading Caitlin Clark, I've got to tell you. Now, looking at her PRA, outlier stat here is that she's failed to hit this in 4 out of her last 5 games against top 5 defenses for rebounds allowed. So for when the matchup for rebounds is difficult, she tends to go under. No, I'm overthinking this. If I think this hard about it, it's probably not a good bet to take. So I'm going to have to pass on that. Aaliyah Boston, her points line at 13.5. She's cashed this in 7 of her last 10, 9 of 21 games this season. 3 games against the Liberty, though. Aaliyah Boston's gone under in all 3, 12, 12, and 5. They're making life difficult for her. If we look at the insight here, Aaliyah Boston, she has exceeded 13.5 in 7 out of her last 9 games, averaging 17.3 points. This Liberty team pretty strong defensively, though, so I'd be a little bit hesitant. So this is contradicting data. Her recent form is excellent, but her form against this team isn't. So when it's contradicting like that, it's usually, for me, best to play it safe and not bet it at all. Her rebound line at 8.5. She's gone under her rebound line in all 3 games against the Liberty. But in her last 10 games, she's hit this in 6 of the last 10, averaging 10.3 boards. The outlier stat is that Aaliyah Boston has failed to exceed this rebound line in 8 of her last 9 games against the top 5 defenses for rebounds allowed. So when the matchup be difficult, she'll be going under on her boards. So, yeah, that's one thing to think about. So what this is really calling out in a lot of these games up against teams that do allow a lot of rebounds, I don't know, she's a big girl. I don't want to take her under. So I'd be leaning to her under. It's just not something I want to take. Let's take a look at Kelsey Mitchell. She's consistent as hell. Let's see if we can find an angle for her. 16.5 points, 6 out of 10 games, 12 out of 21 games this season. In those 3 games against the Liberty, she scored 5 points in game 1, then 17, and then 21. Looking at the stats here, she's covered in 4 of her last 5 games at home. So that's pretty nice. Let's check out her home games only. Kelsey Mitchell at home. She's covered this in 5 out of 8 games, 4 consecutive games. At home, she's hit the over in her points line. This Liberty team, a lot better defensively than the Mystics, the Sky, the Dream, and the Sky once again. So it's a tougher matchup. So I wouldn't buy into just that. But I would lean to the over purely on the fact that if I think Caitlin Clark has a slow offensive game, Kelsey Mitchell going to have to pick it up. We know Aaliyah Boston has a difficult matchup. So it might be down to someone like Kelsey Mitchell to carry this offense in this particular game. But I do have 3 leans from that game, and all of them come from the Liberty. Looking at fading Sabrina, Jonquel Jones rebounds, and Lainey Hamilton points. So those are the ones I want you to think about. And if you're watching this and you're ready, start knocking your votes in. Pick the most popular plays. Let everybody know who's watching this, which are the best ones to take, and get some community bets happening. Next game I'm going to look at is the Mystics versus the Lynx. Now, whichever prop we all land on with the most votes from this particular game, I'll be throwing $100 on. Unfortunately, I won't be doing that for that Liberty game because that starts at 3 a.m. my time, and I'm not going to get up at 2:30 a.m. to check how many votes were done and to watch that game. So this Mystics versus Lynx game, I can guarantee that whatever's the most popular one, I'll be putting $100 on. But let's talk about this Washington Mystics team first. They are on the road. Let's start with Ariel Atkins. And just before we do, let me quickly check the lineup. So we might not have a lot of odds in this game. So Collier got injured in her last game. Dalton's a game time decision. There's still a lot of outs for the Mystics as well. So there might be limited numbers available here, but let's see what we can do. Ariel Atkins, let's start with her. Her point sign's at 14.5. Now, if you're watching this and you have an answer for this, if Nafisa Collier is out, my question is how much does that impact this Lynx defense? Because the reason why they've been playing so well this year is their defense, really. And if with no Collier, I wonder how much that impacts them. So let's talk about Ariel Atkins. Her line's at 14.5. She's hit this in only 4 of 10 games, 10 of 21 games this season. Hasn't versed the Lynx yet, but in previous games last year, 1 from 2. Outlier stat here that she's failed to exceed 14.5 points in 5 out of her last 6 games, but she did, however, scored 18 points against the Aces. So difficult form. This might be a little bit of a difficult game to cap, really, because if this Lynx team has their own injuries, it's going to have to play some sort of a role. So for Ariel Atkins, we know what she's capable of. She's getting the minutes. The minutes are okay. The volume ain't too bad, I would say. Actually, let me look at the season and we'll see what her volume looks like. Averaging 12.9 on the season. So her volume, it is somewhat inconsistent, which makes her difficult to bet on. So I'm probably going to pass on that. Looking at her assists, 3.5 assists, 10 out of 21 games this season. Coming into this game, 4-1 to the over. Yeah, I don't like betting on Ariel Atkins, I'll tell you that. Rebounds at 4, and look at that graph. I ain't fucking with that graph. Nope. All right, who else you got? Aaliyah Edwards. The line's at 9.5. No collar in this one. So this season, 5 out of 18 games. Just checking to see how many games has she been back. Well, she's coming back, but then she always has a little bit of time off, doesn't she? So her line's at 9.5. She's gone under in 4 straight, though, so that's not good. Looking at her last 10 games, she's getting about 20 minutes a night. The volume's okay, given this line, but her percentages have been pretty bad. Her rebound line's at 6.5, 5 out of her last 10, 6 out of 18 games this season. And she's only getting 22 minutes a night by the looks of it. And she's failed to hit this in 5 straight games on the road. So this Lynx team, they do allow a lot of rebounds, though. And that's the one thing that does worry me about taking the under for Lee Edwards. All right, see if we can find something else for this Mystics team. Marsha Hines-Allen. Her point sign's at 9.5. She's cashed this in 5 out of her last 10. Actually, I remember previewing her last time from her last game, and her minutes are inconsistent as hell, so I wouldn't even tell you what to do with her. So we're going to have to pass on that. Let's talk about Julie Van Loo. Man, she a gunner. I was watching her last game, and she just takes whatever shot she wants, this girl. I like her. No fear. Now, point signs at 9.5, 3 out of her last 10, 7 out of 21 games this season. So none of that is good. As of late, last 3 games, 30, 28, 28 minutes, which is nice. The volume is not too bad at all, but look at these percentages. Percentages are pretty poor. 35% from 3, but she does take a lot of shots, which is nice. Problem is, a lot of them, when the shot clock's running low, Julie just throws it up there. This is her assist line at 4.5. She's only hit this in 1 of her last 5 games, 3 out of her last 10, but 11 out of 21 games. So started the season off very well. Difficult matchup here. The Lynx do allow the fewest assists per game, but again, I don't understand, and I'm not aware of what the impact is with no collar in this game. So I'll probably need some help from you guys, so let me know what you think. But I don't know if I can take any bets on these Washington Mystics. Let's jump into the Minnesota Lynx. See if we can find some value there. Let's start with Kayla McBride. So Kayla McBride's line's at 16.5. Line would be a little bit higher than her season average, given to the opportunity there with Nafisa out, but she's hit this in 7 of 21, 2 out of her last 10. I wonder if we can find some games without Nafisa Collier. She's a game time decision, but I don't think she plays. So she's only played 3 games without Nafisa, and she's done quite well. It's going to be difficult to bet this Lynx team as well, isn't it? So the Mystics are pretty decent defensively. We do know that. They don't allow too many assists. We do know that. This game should be a lot closer because Nafisa ain't there. I'm just checking the spread real quick. So the spread's still 8.5, even without Collier in the lineup. So they're still predicting some sort of beatdown. I just worry, where are the points going to come from? And I know Kayla McBride is very capable of it. The assists, I can't tell you what's going to happen there. The point side of things, you could definitely see an upside here. So this is a minutes, 32 minutes a night, 10.1. Shot attempts, those 3 games without Nafisa. I just wonder how different they are. So she only took 11.7 attempts in those games. So it's not like she sees a big uplift. Probably have to look at someone like Alana Smith or Carlton, perhaps. Maybe look at the front court, because I think that's where the opportunity might be. Let's have a look at Alana Smith. So her points line in this game is at 12.5. She's cashed this in 4 out of her last 10. She did score 14 points against the Sun in that last game. And one thing to call out, once Nafisa went down, then Alana Smith I did notice an increase in her scoring. She only took 6 shots, though. So the volume wasn't necessarily high. She was 4 from 5 from deep. Are you kidding me? So I think there's a wild outlier there. I don't know if we can predict that's going to continue to happen. That's what makes me a little bit unsure. The outlier start for Alana Smith. She's failed to hit this in 7 out of her last 9 games at home, but her last 2 games at home she did go over. So maybe she's learning. Let's look at her boards. The line's at 5, 6 out of her last 10, 9 out of 21 games this season. Let's look at games where she gets at least 30 minutes. Games this season with at least 30 minutes. She's only hit this line in 3 out of 7. This Mystics team does give up a lot of boards, though. I'm overthinking that one. So if I'm overthinking it, I ain't betting it. We'll pass on that. What about Courtney Williams? Maybe she can give us a banger on this. Courtney Williams, her points, rebounds, assists, I think they all could be good value here because we know she can do it all. And if Nafisa ain't there, I imagine she can step it up. So the line for her is at 11.5. She's hitting 4 of her last 10, 7 out of 21 games this season. Head-to-head matchups, 2 out of 4, but that was last season, so I'm not overly worried about that. So her recent form, 26 minutes, 10.7 attempts. I wonder what her games without Nafisa look like. There's not a lot of scoring in there. And I know that this was when she was on another team. This is back when she was playing for Chicago. So, yeah, her numbers without Nafisa, I'm not too concerned about. But points, that's not the option for me. Taking a look at her assists, mine's at 5. 5 out of her last 10, 9 out of 21 games this season. This Mystics team doesn't give up too many assists, so probably not that. Rebounds, 4.5, 11 out of 21, only 3 out of her last 10. She's failed to exceed this rebound line in 4 out of her last 5 games. So it's quite difficult because we don't have enough data when these players are missing. So last 10 games, this is the last 10 games without Nafisa though. And this is when she was playing for the Chicago Sky. She was getting 29 minutes. But check it out. Last 20 games without Nafisa. She's hit the over in 14 of her last 20 games. 9 out of her last 10 games, she's hit the over. But this is when she was playing for a different team, you know what I'm saying? But as I'm going through all these player props, did you notice that there's no one necessarily from this Lynx team with outstanding rebounding numbers? It really is Nafisa as their key rebounder, and she's going to be out. Let me just double check that actually. She's a game time decision because of a left foot injury. I'm going to have a look at RotoWire real quick. See what the news is. So she's listed as doubtful. So she's doubtful. I'm going to assume she's not going to play. Again, the Lynx are sitting high up in the standings, up against a Washington Mystics team that's probably not all too threatening. So I'm going to assume she's not going to play. So for Courtney Williams, I'm going to say her rebounds because her rebound numbers are great. And when you lose your top rebounder, somebody else has to pick up the slack. And if this Lynx team is still going to be great defensively, there's going to be some rebound opportunities for them. So I think Courtney Williams and her rebounds could be a good look. Now I want to check some of these other girls who might get some more game time. Maybe someone like Bridget Carlton, perhaps. I think she'll get more time without Collier in the lineup. So she did get 32 minutes that last game against the Connecticut Sun. She's getting about 30 minutes anyway in her last 10 games, so she might get more, perhaps. She does bomb from deep. The Washington Mystics, middle of the pack in terms of how well they defend that area of the floor. She's taking 5 3-pointers per game. Nah, I'm not loving it. I think that if Nafisa continues to miss time, though, Bridget Carlton could be a good look. I'm just checking to see if there's anyone I may have missed. I'm pretty sure that's all the key players. All right, there's probably no need to take some bets On that Lynx game, I only ended up with the one lean, and that's Courtney Williams taking it over in rebounds. All the other stuff, too confusing. There's too many player movements. I couldn't tell you what I think. But I'm going to bet on that. I'm letting you all know right now. I'm going to bet on Courtney Williams over in her rebounds in that Lynx game. But I do have some leans from that Liberty game that'd be great for you guys to vote on. And then for those of you to come back, check out the video before the game starts, see what the most popular option is. The most popular option of Alicia Gray cashed out yesterday, so hopefully that can cash out once again. And if you did make it this far, I want you to put in the initials VC in the comment section for my boy Vince Carter. Put it in the comment section, VC, and I know you made it to this point in the video. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.